You guys only seeing my video, is that right?
Yeah.
I can see you, Don.
Yeah.
You're not sharing yet.
I can see you.
Well, the best part is I'm working with 3 monitors here, so it's always kind of fun. To say that we're going to go share a screen, let me just figure out which one I want to go share. And we can start to go do that here in a second. And then Fred will turn over to you in a minute. But let me make sure I got this rocking and rolling. You know, just
Well, yeah. In fact, while
3
you do
screens
that,
is always fun, Kristen. I got to tell you.
No, I know. And why you do that? Hey, Jason, real quick, we know we have our visual indicators here, but we also have some required inspections by Toyota. So our OEM procedures. What are we required to do to this car, regardless, because it's been in a collision?
Well, there is a ton of stuff regarding restraints. I could pull a couple of them up. Even if there's been no airbag deployment, or if it's just been in a collision, or even someone says it's not been involved in a collision, we're looking at clock springs. We're looking at, certainly the passenger side airbag. We're looking at driver's side airbag, steering wheel, airbag sensors. And then if we're disconnecting the battery, which is quite more than likely a possibility on this vehicle, we're going to need to go ahead and redo the occupant classification system. We're going to have to reinitialize that, as well as there's even a initialization process for the lift gate on the automatic lift. There's an automatic lift gate on it if we disconnect the battery. So there's a ton of different things we need to think about as we're putting together this repair plan. But certainly the least of not of which is, as you mentioned, the required inspection piece. And it's a rather lengthy list.
Yeah.
Okay.
Awesome.
Well,
All right. Well, Don's got us ready to go.
I've got my screen share working, right? And then we'll go through those as we start to highlight Qapter Estimating, where we feel that with the data and the way we can drive it, we can make better decisions every time writing an estimate. And so just so everyone kind of gets an idea of who's who and what's going on our organization, I will flip to the next screen here. Here we go. You just got to love this. So here. With you got myself, Don Mykrid. So I'm the VP of Sales, Parts, and E-commerce at Solera, covering a myriad of products and solutions, living in the collision world. I was an MSO for many, many years with 28 collision repair centers in multiple states. So I'm very familiar with the day in and day out of not only the shop, but also estimatics in general. And then what we have with us is Fred. I'll let you introduce yourself, Fred.
Yeah, my name is Fred Burso. I've been with the company for 25 years, roughly, in product management for majority of that time. I'm responsible for the estimating applications for Solera.
There we go. See, it's quick and easy. Now that I can get this working, I've learned the technology on this side. We're going to be all right. So as we flip through, we got Solera, but what we want to do is really just kind of jump in and start to get into the product overview. And I think a lot of stuff that we want to show today from the estimating side is really kind of give you a little bit of a preview of what it looks like, right? It's an inside-out methodology. Everyone's kind of familiar with Audatex Estimating and that fact, frame dimensions. It's the 3D graphics, and I think one of the things to show is how we can spin, move, and adjust and take a look at the vehicle in multiple angles when trying to write something like this estimate that we have in the shop today with Kristen. So we're going to kind of work through this collaboratively. Fred, I'm going to, at some point, kind of throw it over to you. Some of the new features that we're going to show you guys in this, anyone who's a current user of Audatex Estimating is going to be very familiar with that look and feel. What you're going to see here is really bringing it into the next generation where it's cloud-based, browser agnostic. There's certain browsers that it really likes better than others, but really kind of show you how it helps with the workflow. And once you get used to the layout and structure of this new UI, it really becomes more intuitive. But the key behind this for everyone is the mobility of it. So as Kristen could walk around the shop with anything that's got a connection to the internet, be it a phone, tablet, computer, she can write an estimate from any direction in any place with it. So with that, Fred, what we're going to do is I'm going to stop sharing my screen and we're going to get into starting to write this estimate with Kristen. Does that make sense?
I think it does, yeah, so I'll start sharing my screen.
Okay, you should be able to grab it from me.
Nope, you actually have to stop.
I'm working on it.
No.
Please hold. It's the multiple screens that just really kind of get you sometimes, and you kind of go, wait a minute.
Yeah, so while we switch screens, as Don mentioned, Qapter Estimating is the next generation estimating system for Audatex. Really, from the technology standpoint, we've totally upgraded the technology. We support several more browsers, so you can use Google Chrome, you could use Edge, and really we focused on tablet usage and with the UI. The great thing about this is that we retain all of your data. So if you're already using Audatex Estimating, when you move to Qapter Estimating, all of your list of estimates and work list is retained, as is all of your settings, rates, manual entries, remarks. All of this information transfers over. So really hopping over from Audatex Estimating 8 over to Qapter Estimating is we try to make it as painless as possible.
And Fred, one of the nice things about switching over to this is a little difference for anyone who's using our cloud-based system today. There's kind of a limit, right, on the number of estimates you keep in the system. And one of the things that you've done in going to this new UI is that limit's been removed. Is that correct?
Yes, we do. We've removed some of the strings out of the system where we could.
Awesome. So let's go ahead and work with Kristen here. So we got this car that was bumped into a dually, right? And we got some damages, and so we've loaded it into the system. So Fred, let's walk through starting to kind of write this estimate. We got Kristen out at the car. She can help us with the VIN and a few other things from some photos. And let's see if we can't get this one rocking and rolling.
Yeah, before I go into it, can I kind of toot the horn a little bit?
Sure,
Yeah,
walk through a few of these things. Yeah.
Yeah, we've changed. This is the work list, and we've really tried to clean up the menu here on the left side. If you're used to the current system, that menu extends all the way down to the bottom. What we've done is where there are some estimate-specific actions, we have the 3 little dot icon here that you can click on and get to the actions that you could do on that particular claim.
So one of those actions, Fred, that I see over there is email, because one of the things is we started doing some
Yes.
testing on this originally was the thought of email. So I can, when I go to click on that email, I can then put in all the email addresses, attach photos, and do everything I need to go do? Is
Yeah,
that right?
absolutely. So we've also removed some technological strings out of the email process. In the past, you needed an actual email application like Outlook loaded on your machine. Now, even if you don't have one of those, you can email the estimates directly from the work list, and add all your images and all of any sort of attachments that you've put on. So, a scan of a tool bill or anything like that.
Nice. So if I do the OE procedures and add the OE procedure document to the estimate, I can attach that when I email it to an insurer or a claim rep or a customer, right?
Absolutely.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So what I've done is I've already started putting in some information about this Toyota. Kristen, if that's okay with you to start that way, or do you want to create a new one?
No, absolutely. Nope.
All right. So before I turn it over to you, I'll just kind of walk through the admin real quick. So we support every field that we have in the past. It's just a different layout. What you're noticing is that there is more space between the fields, because that is what is required as you're using the system on a tablet. We know that if you're trying to write something really quick, if you have a walk-in estimate, you need to get the contact information really fast so that you can email it or do follow-up later. So that's what's on top. And then you have more of your insurance-related type information on the bottom if it applies. We've changed the layout. Again, this is on the menus. Rather than everything being listed on the left, we've gone to a tab type of section where you have more admin fields available in different pages. But the what we call really the quick admin, which is the information that's mostly put into estimates, is
And so,
right.
Fred, one of the questions I have is people are viewing that, and I know you jumped out of it for a second, but
Yep.
there's more information. So the way this UI is set up, I can now just scroll down, because if there's something I'm missing, a field that I'm used to, this is an intuitive piece that you can just continue to move down the screen. Is that right?
Yeah,
I don't have a
and
slide bar on the side. I just keep moving down.
yeah, and I have a Microsoft Surface, and right now I'm just using my finger on my screen to scroll up and down.
Right. So designed for the tablet side. So for everyone who's watching,
Absolutely.
the kind of cool thing about it is you can just move your fingers on it, slide it around, and tap on where you need.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So
Cool.
I got the VIN from Kristen. I already put it in and decoded. It's a 2014 Toyota RAV4 LE. And Kristen, I'm going to turn it over to you.
All right, so since we definitely want to make sure that we're working on the estimating software before more than we're working on any of this, let's just go ahead and get into point of impact. And then I'll tell you that in coaching wise, if you
Yeah.
make sure you're getting your trim codes, your colors. Before we do leave though, Fred, well, I'm sorry, I messed you up there, but we do have the ability to pick the paint code
Yes,
quickly with
absolutely.
it. I like that because if in a traditional blueprinting model, the painter doesn't get the paint code the day it hits the paint booth. So, and through the blueprinting, as we're going through those paint codes and getting them back there, the painter knows what's coming all week. We want to make sure that it's back there and loaded for them and good to go. So I like getting my paint codes and having conversations. Part of my blueprinting process is to also go have a conversation because one day we just don't know every color, and we may have a color that's kind of difficult, and the painter may give me some information of some extra things I have to do, some extra prep or some of those things. So definitely be having
And Christian, the
having
other
that.
thing that's kind of
What
cool
also
in
is
UI.
also,
Oh, go ahead, Fred.
we'll provide the refinish, whether it's
The codes?
three-stage
Okay.
right on there. So
Yep.
you see that there's this Blizzard Pearl, which is a three-stage. So the system will walk you right to it and allow you to put three-stage. It will actually default to three-stage if you pick that color.
The other side too, Fred, is that it'll show you where it's located on the car too, right?
Yeah.
If you need to. So if
Yeah,
you don't know where it's
so
located on the
that
car, you
comes
can click
up.
on that and it will show you where the paint
Yep.
paint code is normally listed on the vehicle.
Yeah. We'll stop those Facebook posts of, hey, can anybody tell me where the paint code's located on X and X? All right. So let's get to that point of impact. One of the things that I
Okay,
like.
so
Oh,
I just want to point out, the options really quick. As you know, the
yeah.
Audatex system is option driven. So as you pick all your options, it does impact the parts that you see on the system, and we filter down to the most accurate part for that vehicle. We don't even show you a lot of those choices that are impacted by options in many cases. We've also regrouped all of the recall information for that vehicle here, as well as the frame dimension. So it's all on the vehicle ID page. And now, Kristen, I am going to go over to the point of impact. Made you
Awesome.
wait long enough.
Hey, no, it's y'all show. We just showing off the software. I've been playing with it for a while, and I want to make sure ultimately that we get to questions for the people that want to ask questions and want to ask things that we're not going to show for this. But obviously, we've picked our primary point of impact. This again filters out the database, or not filters the database, but filters what I'm going to see when I get into damage, which is great. All right, so for me, for damage, one of the main things that starts, and some of the information that Jason had listed, is I may have 6, 7, 10 lines of entry before I ever even start thinking about the car. And those are some of the things that have come up in what Jason has told us is a requirement for this vehicle. Now, once you get into this screen, we all see the graphics that I love. It's my favorite customer negotiation tool. I have these on a 60-inch screen, and I love to do this. If I'm going to do a webinar with a customer that can't be present when we're going over their repair and their repair planning, and I've got this on my screen and I'm flipping stuff up and down, it sure is really cool. It makes discussions easy. It also makes my discussions with attorneys fairly easy. So when we're trying to explain estimates pre-trial or pre-deposition, this works out fairly well and lets them see the car, and they like it. Works out great in a courtroom too, just like you guys.
And Kristen,
I'm sure
up in the corner there, and I'm going to ask Fred to be Vanna, and up in the corner there's a little icon up there. It kind of shows you that we actually indicate by color different substrates. So if it's rubber, glass, aluminum, boron, carbon fiber, all of it is color coded when you look at our graphics, which really makes it easy to start taking a look at what Jason had talked about earlier about the OE procedures, because if it's an aluminum or it's boron, it'll then really guide you down the fact of following those procedures more accurately because you know the metal types, right?
Yes.
Or how it's.
That's why you're seeing that part here being purple, right? Because high strength steel.
Yep. So the great thing about that is substrate makes a difference on repair versus replace, or even what the times may be if I decided to do it. So I'm going to have some entries that have to go on this estimate before I do anything else. And one of the things I've got to have, Fred, obviously Toyota has a statement. I got to scan this car, right, Jason?
Yes, we're going to do a pre-scan.
Yes,
Okay.
indeed.
All right. So we're going to do a scan now. What are a couple different ways to put scanning on an estimate with this new system?
So to me, there's a couple of different ways. You can go to the additional labor, and you're going to see the pre-repair scan right here. And you can select it right here. Now, the methodology for the pre-repair scans and as well as post-repair scans, if the manufacturer does provide labor time, we will populate the labor time. If not, you would be able to put in your own labor time, and the system prompts you. It lets you know that there's nothing. And then you can put in your labor hours or your price.
All right, I need 52 hours to scan it. No, I'm just kidding. No, so let's just throw in a half hour there. Let's keep it in a zone that everyone can find a comfort in. So, so I got my pre-scan on there. Now let's talk about what you're doing now with these additional labor items that you're adding, and how there's a lot of stuff in here that's really good. There's, you know, my calibration of cameras. There's wiring harness. There's all these things that are done in there, and are those considered manual entries now in the system? Or are these considered labor lines?
No, they're labor lines, so they're what we call controlled entries rather than manual entries. They're basically, it's part of the data that we provide on a consistent basis for that vehicle. And what the other way to enter those things, by the way, is if you're working on a part that requires a calibration or something like this. For example, if you're working on a camera, on the right-hand side, when we get to the part edit slide out, you're going to see your additional labor operations that pertain specifically to that part. So you're going to see your pre-scan, your post-scan, and any sort of calibration that applies to that specific part.
So, Kristen, if someone, for example, starts to write the estimate and just jumps in and starts writing the bumper, and eventually gets into one of the sensors on the vehicle and has never put a pre-scan on there, it will then prompt them if they would like to add it. So because we're going to add it to start, because that's the way you teach the way estimating is done, right? Start from the front and what I have to go do. It will not prompt us if we pick it because it's already been added.
Awesome. The other thing about what I like about these entries is they're covering what traditionally we kept in maybe what we called a part code table or a manual line entry, and then those would sometimes fall to the bottom of the estimate. So as I'm writing now, these things are staying in what I like to call my estimate body, which is really nice. So I got to get it scanned. We know we got that coming. Jason, there were some other pre-inspection or post-collision inspection things that I was required to do around some safety systems. So what all else do I got to get on this estimate around seatbelts?
Well, around seatbelts, we need to be inspecting the seatbelts, front seat inner belt. And that includes, again, let me, if I can pull that one up, I got all kinds of windows open here. So I believe also we're going to need to be hooked. Again, you mentioned the pre-scan. So as part of the inspection for a lot of these restraint system pieces, our first step is going to be to check for diagnostic trouble codes. Looking at here, for example, we need a seat position sensor for a vehicle involved in a collision, airbag not deployed. We need to do a diagnostic system check on that.
Okay.
As well as do a bunch of visual inspection. This is just one particular part here right now. So visually check for defects of the seat position airbag sensor installed in the vehicle, cracks in the housing, sensor housing, chips in the sensor housing, cracks in or other parts of the connector, peeling of the label. So again, that's just for one part after doing our diagnostic system check, in which we're going to need to hook up a scan tool and again run through the SRS components on this particular vehicle.
So I'm going to catch a lot of that in my pre-repair scan, and that's going to be some of my diagnostics, but I do have some visual inspections of the seatbelt components. Now, a couple of different ways to enter this. I can make a manual line entry that just says check and adjust and seatbelts as, you know, outlined by OE procedure, or, you know, I could go and find each individual seatbelt and click on it and maybe put a repair line in there and add 0.1 or whatever I wanted to do. Let's make it easy, Fred. How about you just add a manual line for me that just says check and adjust seatbelts?
Okay.
So if you notice, if you went right up to that top corner, you can hit the part button and at any time put it in a manual or a pre-stored entry, right, Fred?
Yes, absolutely. So this is how you add your manual entries. And I just went in, I clicked on plus, add a part, and we reached the max. So let's get creative and make sure we know seatbelts. And so here you're seeing the part edit slide out. We've grouped the operations based on category. So you have all of your replace operations here, repair, paint, or refinish, R&I assembly, and then more operations. In this case, Kristen, can I put it as additional labor?
Yeah, be great.
And
Long as I get paid.
how long is it going to take you?
Just checking and pulling out and doing a thumb test. I probably got about an hour and a half in seatbelts.
Okay. And Christian, should we put a line note on this that just indicates it's per OE requirement?
Yep. So I'm definitely going to want to add an OE for this particular. Jason, was this a TIS data, a TIS sheet?
Yes.
Okay. So what
You
TIS number is that, or is the TIS got a number, or is it just crib sheets have a
Oh
number?
boy, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it wasn't right. I'll get it for you.
We'll add a note right now,
We'll
but
just
everyone
add a
knows
quick
that we got to be a
note.
little more.
So to add a note to an operation that you already have, we have multiple ways to do it. Once, if you forget the note, you can do it later by looking at your damage list. There's an icon just like this one on every damage entry on the damage list. But here, it looks just like a common icon, right? I think you guys can recognize it once I move my little hand off.
Perfect.
And it will give you a way to put in a what we call a remark for that particular damage entry that you've put on. So here, this is per OE procedure. It saves me a little time. If I want to add more detail about it, I can. So if you have the TIS number, you can add it right here and hit save, and boom, it's attached to that particular damage entry.
Perfect. We can quote a page. We can take a picture and add it in there if we need to add it as an image or an additional attached document. So we're good to go. So I got to check those seat belts. I'm going to do that pre-repair scan. Jason, anything else I got to do before I can actually maybe even just take this bumper cover off that we know is going to be on the estimate?
Well, we may want to be looking at disabling that battery, correct?
Yeah. So, as we get into the bumper procedure on this one, I want to disable the battery anyway. That's kind of anytime I'm going to be taking parts on and off and I've got airbag sensors in the way, that's a procedure for me. But I definitely have impact where an airbag sensor was. And so I definitely have some visual indicators for why that battery is going to have to be disconnected. And those sensors are going to have to be removed during the inspection and repair
As you're
process.
getting into talking about that, Fred, will you do me a favor and just, I can't see the bottom of the screen. Can you show where the lines are currently today, or click on where I can see the lines?
The problem is, let me see if I can do this way. Yay.
There you go. That's
Yeah.
perfect. So
Boom.
that's what was missing. So I can see my damage entries, the entries I've already made here. So we're going to add another one here for disconnect the battery. Is that right, Kristen? So we want to disconnect the battery, right?
Yep, disconnect that battery.
Yeah, so there's a couple of ways to do this. You can use your pre-stored entries, which is where I am right now, actually, and click on battery. What I've done to save time, because I kind of hint this was I had a hint this was coming. I created a pre-stored entry for disconnecting the battery under my frequently used category, and I have battery DNR, and it's already on the with my pre-stored time or amount that I've put in. If I want to check what I had put in additional labor of 0.2. Is that all right with you, Kristen?
Yeah, it's great.
And you can actually add, because I have my little notes here to explain what this DNR is, disconnect and reconnect.
I love putting DNR on estimates because I always get a phone call and they go, "What is that?"
What
And I
does
go,
that
"You
mean?"
obviously didn't work homeowners." So I don't know why we don't have DNR in automotive. It fits a little bit better than R&I sometimes, I guess, for me.
So Fred, one of the things I want to ask, as Kristen's talking about that a little bit, is there another way for me to look at that damage list? Because maybe I have way more than just 3 entries. I want to see 7 or 8 or 10. Where would I go?
Yeah, so you go up at the top here, and we'll go through some of these as we continue here. But the damage list, that shows you more columns, and you can see a lot more entries right here.
And if I want to go back to my estimate where I was looking at the graphics, how do I go back?
Yeah, you just click on the car and you go back to damage.
Now, I don't have a list anymore, so that list is where? Because you had a list before. No, go back to the estimate.
I just want to show that you can actually change any of those values right from here. So, instead of your pre-scan, if you wanted to, change it, you just highlight it, make your change, and off you are. And what I think Don was getting at is damage list, right down here at the bottom.
So you click on that, and I can see, and I'm always going to see a preview of the last 3. Is that right?
The last 3 are at the bottom. Yeah.
Okay. Great.
So, a question. You got a question coming in from Robert about where these manual lines are going to print. And so I think that's one of the things that there's a difference between what you guys have pre-stored in as additional labor and how the system sees that as a kind of a part or an estimate line entry, and then how it sees manual entries. So my pure manual entries are still going to be at the bottom of my estimate, correct?
Yes, correct. The
So-
manual entries that I've entered so far will be at the bottom. There's a way to attach a manual entry to a damage lines, but you have to have the damage line already
Added.
created to do that. So for example, if you do a radiator and you want to attach coolant to it, you are certainly able to do that, but you'd have to have the radiator on the estimate as a precursor.
Awesome. I think that's probably something that we definitely want to demo. So I probably have about another 50, 60 manual line entries before we even get to it. We've definitely got to protect the battery. We've got to secure the battery cable away from the battery. We've got so much to do, but I want to get into the parts and the parts graphics and selecting and adding parts to the car. So keep in mind, folks, when we do fully blueprint this car, we will show you what the 20 lines of entry are before we even get to the
Right.
bumper cover. And go over all that. But we did want to show software to you today and get to your questions like what Robert have there. So we're going to move through this faster. Please don't put this out there and go, Kristen totally skipped 20 lines of OEM required information. So, so we definitely know from our visual indicators that we got to buy a bumper. We got to buy the lower bumper. We've got our lower grill insert, and then we have damage to our upper grill. So Fred, is there a fast capture option for me in this? I mean, I know we're here, and so if you could show how to
Yeah.
select parts from here and then how to do the fast capture, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, so the fast capture, and it doesn't apply to every part because there's a bit of an asterisk to it, but I know, for example, at this part, I can do a direct replace, but if you know you're going to replace those parts, you could put the system in fast capture mode, and it's nice if you're going to do a detrim on a door or something like this. You could put it in replace, and then every part that you single click on will be replaced. What I like to do is you can also do a double click on any one of those parts, and the system will automatically put it on. So if you want that lower piece added, I just did a double click and it went on. If it's a part that happens to be refinished, the refinished will be automatically added. Also, the system takes into consideration your aftermarket part search criteria.
What? I'm just kidding.
What? Yeah, I know. I think I got an aftermarket part hit on that one. If you want, I could turn it on. I can turn it off for the
Oh,
whole
it's fine. No, hey, I'm just kidding. Everybody uses the system a little different, and I want to make sure that everybody who uses it, every way it's going to get used, gets to see how it would work for them. So.
Yeah. So the fast capture is nice. I like it a lot for R&I personally. For replace, I like to do the single click and the double click, but again, the system is flexible and you can use it however you want. For that bumper cover, the double click won't work because I have some choices to make. This is a part that's available either standalone or as a recycled assembly. So the system is prompting you for which one you really want in the case of the replace, or you could also do your overhaul and everything from here.
And Fred, that's set up based on the way I set up my profile, correct?
What was that?
It's set up on the way I've set up my profile, that it's got the option
Yep.
for the recycle.
Yeah. So while we're here, let's talk about that. So I'm obviously going to replace that cover with an OE, but I still got to prep the raw. So how can I select both? How am I going to do that?
Yeah, so I would go here and replace it. And it will put it on the estimate. Then you click on it again and click on prep raw bumper cover.
Boom.
Yep.
You went real quick there, Fred. We do that again really slow. Get out of there for a minute. So you just clicked on it
too
again.
fast.
I didn't see you saw the
Quick
raw.
draw.
I went too fast.
Quick, man.
The first time, Fast
We got it
Freddy.
selected. So now the second time you're clicking on it, do I get different options than I had before? It was already there. I just didn't see it. So on the bottom, it was the prep.
Yes. The prep was on the bottom. Let me, and actually you can also get to it from here. If you do this drop down, you have all of your other options
Awesome.
that were there. And I already have the part replaced. So I'm going to go to prep raw, which would be paint operation here, refinish. And we provide system time. So there's no override. It's not going to raise any flags. And there it is.
I'm really good at raising flags on audit reports. I
You
just,
too.
I just want to, I think I deserve a medal or a plaque or something for that. That would be awesome. Now, while you're doing that right now, rotate that for me. So one of the questions, you know, a lot of times I'm working and I'm trying to figure out what certain clips and what certain parts are. And when you're looking at a two-dimensional graphic, there's only so much I can blow that screen up, but I can really turn that bumper sideways and take a look at those retaining clips for
Yeah.
that side molding there.
Yeah.
So I can really get a good view of what I've got going on. And this is one of the things I love about finding parts, selecting parts, being able to see them, things that, you know, I'm
You
not sure
can
what that's
also
called, but I gotta
isolate a
find it.
part just by clicking on that one part, and then you can reset your view um, and all of that. Oops, it's not
Yeah.
resetting.
Yeah, you
So
reset
it
twice.
comes in. It
Okay.
comes in really, really handy, just even for an estimator for searching and finding what you need. So I've got my lower bumper, I've got my bumper. I need that right molding over there, Fred. So that
This
right
one?
little, yep, I need that right molding.
Yeah. So the
Um,
system already defaulted to the right side because of the point of impact.
Yep.
So it's driven by the point of impact. So when I double click on it, it will put on that molding. Oh, no,
Perfect.
it's got the choice. So here I have a quick way to replace it. I just click prefer to replace option, and there it is.
Bam, good to go. So that's pretty easy about it. I mean, obviously we can go, I'm gonna need the grill, I'm gonna need that lower grill, I'm gonna need the upper right grill insert when we get to the grill, which for our chrome pieces up here. There's a lot of parts I'm gonna need. I gotta take the headlamps out, I gotta aim the headlamps. That's another, you know, about an hour and a half. So far we've added a pre-stored additional labor, we've added a labor note, we've bought parts, right?
Yeah. Did you want to
Let's
go through the
R&I.
headlamp RNI or
Yeah,
Yeah, let's
let's
do
go
the
ahead.
internet.
Let's
Yep.
R&I the
Yeah, so
headlamp because
I've navigated to the next section by using, this is called the navigation wheel in Audatex Talk. And those arrows navigate you to the next logical section of the vehicle. So here I have my headlight and that little grill insert that we were just talking about.
yay.
Yay. So if we want to click on the headlight, we could do the RNI. The RNI is right here. Notice, and this is where I wanted to get at, is so I kind of drove you there. There's a lot of information here on this part that it's laid out. This is where you have your related additional operations. In this case, it's a headlight. This is where you see headlamp aim. If you were working on a camera or some sort of a sensor or something that requires recalibration, this is where you would see your scans and calibration listed.
So that's a good cue to let me know. So let's say I had trackable headlights. That obviously that you're going to get a scan on those. Those have to be reset once they're reinstalled. So
Yeah.
I'm going to get a pop-up there that if I did not get it and know that I should have done it from my pre-repair notes from my research, now something's warning me, hey, Kristen, you need to pay a little bit more special attention.
Yeah, this is actually what we show is based on the OE procedures, and sometimes I was a little surprised that some of these things weren't there. So I was working, for example, on a camera on a BMW once. I'm like, why was I not prompted to recalibrate it? And then I looked at the BMW procedures, and they weren't there. So that's why we didn't show it. So we go by, if you don't see it, it's because the OEM, the OE didn't have it on their list of to-dos.
Awesome. So
The
the
other thing
reason
I want to
yep,
can you give me 1 second?
absolutely. Sorry, sir.
We show the suppliers for the aftermarket parts down here at the bottom. So you can look at the list of hits that you had, and you can pick another one if you'd like to. So we've actually added a lot of functionality in this window, which I think is pretty cool, but that's my job.
I do too. No, I mean I do.
Navigate.
There's so much I can do in there, and I, you know, I write a different way than I did when I had my insurance hat on for all those years. And there's a lot of things in here that if you, you know, I'll put on that insurance DRP manager. There's a lot of really cool functionality in here that makes estimating by rules a little faster, a little easier.
Yeah,
so
and here
again,
you're seeing
and-
the system intelligence prompt you to aim the headlight because I did not click on that. I'm going to make a mistake on purpose and not do it, but still continue and save because there's
and
another.
the reason, Chris, we're going to do that. So we're going to R&I both headlights, Fred, and then we'll get the one grill insert on that side. And we
Okay.
left it off for a reason because there's times, Kristen, as you well know, shops, as much as you try and teach them everything that we need to do on the estimating and those procedures, there's things that get forgotten or missed. And so one of the things Fred's going to highlight as we get through near the end of this is a thing called shop forgettables that we have, or recoverables, which really kind of runs through some compliance rules for shops that says, hey, look, these are things that you may want to consider that you could or could not be adding to your estimate based on what you've written. And so we're going to show that. So that sometimes, Kristen, we get busy and we miss these things. And so Fred's going to highlight how
Yeah,
that works.
you know, we get busy, or it's a training. I mean, everybody's constantly training. I mean, there's I still constantly train, right? It takes me about an hour and a half to write a bumper cover estimate anymore. So we're all still constantly training. So
Yeah,
what I
it's like
love about
things like
that,
kill the car, hazardous waste, you know, those type of things that are little, you know, corrosion protection, things that you should be adding that you just sometimes forget in the in the hustle and bustle of writing these sheets.
yeah, exactly. Well, and the thing about it for me is, as this is a forgettables list, so I get, this is not an audit list. So this is a set of rules that you make as a shop. So you as the shop owner can decide those rules. You can decide what you want your estimators checked against and what you want them signing off on. So this isn't some sort of pre-stored rules that comes from a DRP agreement or whatever. These are your rules. This is your audit tool. So yeah, what I want to do, Fred, is I'm thinking, while we got these, the reason I went in here into these headlights, because obviously overhaul the bumper cover when I replace it is going to include the R&I of the headlights. It's part of the removal process for the bumper.
Yep.
But the reason I'm in here selecting them separately, people going, God, Kristen, that's a little double work, is because I know for Toyota, the headlamp procedure is about an hour long. So it's 4 or 5 pages. Jason's probably got it handy there for us.
Ready.
I got a full tank of gas, got to be level, got to have one guy sit in the driver's seat while one side aims the, so I got a lot of work to do. I want to make my labor note, like you were talking, Fred, where you can attach it to a part that's on the estimate. Can we make our labor note there and talk about what we're going to be doing on those, and maybe what that labor is going to be on those headlights?
So headlamp assembly, R&I. So it shows included because indeed it is part of the bumper assembly. You can add your little labor note right here.
Awesome.
And what did you want to say?
Headlight aiming, per OE procedures. Perfect. We'll save that in there. And now I gotta get a labor operation around headlight aiming.
I'm sorry.
No,
So
we have to add the OE procedure.
Yeah,
because
we're not going to, since we're not going to do that 0.4, 0.5 headlight aiming default. Those days, I don't think there's many screw adjust aim headlights anymore. But because that labor time doesn't exist, we're going to have to go add a manual labor for those headlights that we've selected. And then
you want to add a labor line just below it, right?
Yeah. So that way attached. So it goes back to Robert's question before, and basically saying, hey, where do those manual line entries? Well, yes, there's some that go to the bottom, but there are ways for you to get them where they need to go. This is it. Pay me. No, can we later? Aim headlamps per procedures. Perfect. Drop it in there.
Yeah. And I'm going to do my additional labor again.
Yeah.
5.5.
I'm feeling generous today. I'm going to do it for an hour. For those of you listening, if I wanted to, I could make an additional labor note on this. If I wanted to add and say labor time includes 2 techs, because for this you do have to have a tech sitting in the driver's seat and then 1 tech outside doing all the aiming and measuring. So if I wanted to add some a note for that or whatever, I could put that in there too.
Yeah, and I don't know if now's a good time, but I could show you what it looks like on the estimate.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah, let's do that, because like I said, that's there's a couple questions that everybody's gonna have. Where did my line notes go, and then how many lines can I put on the estimate? Those are the 2 questions. Somewhere Larry's gonna jump on here and go, how many lines can I write? So I feel him coming.
Yeah, so you have your breakout here. So this is the headlamp. I picked my own supplier. So there it is, and assembly headlamp. Why is this not attaching?
So you got the headlamp right assembly down there, and you got the note right underneath the headlamp aim per OE procedure.
Yep.
There we go.
Down there. Yeah. There's the note. The labor operation is there on line 13.
Yep.
So I should have gone right there with line 10.
Yeah,
Okay.
maybe I did something wrong. I'm gonna have to look at that one.
There's nothing like being live, right?
Yeah, that's
But
always
Robert, to your question, there's a way to make that additional labor operation go with where line 10 would have been and not fall below the what we call the dreaded extras. So when you get that long list of extras at the end of the estimate, adjusters tend to take their eyes straight to that and just go, oh, here's 27 lines I can cut off. So
it's nice here, Fred, and I know you're talking about this, but Fred, we've done two things here. We've added a headlamp to replace it, but then we're also R&Ing it. So we made a mistake, right?
Okay.
So I look at it and I go, wait a minute, I got to take off. I'm not replacing it. I'm R&Ing it. What's a quick and easy way to take that part off?
Just go back to your damage list.
Again, Kristen, it's kind of a combo here, right? We're really trying to write an estimate, but we're trying to show the power and use of this new UI and the software. So, for everyone who's paying attention to this today and logged in, this is really to highlight the new UI of Qapter Estimating for Audatex.
Yeah,
and there's a lot of stuff that we should be doing, and Kristen teaches in her classes on a regular basis, and that's why she wants to make sure we're talking about these things so that no one's misconstruing the fact that what we're doing here today is highlighting what this software does and how it can be used in the shop.
Yeah, so there's, I have my R&I and my replace here. So what I can do is I can, you just wanted to R&I it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'll delete this part.
Boom.
Gone.
Yeah.
So you do have your little actions buttons here. And by the way, I just want to highlight here that we show the labor breakout. We also show it when you're selecting the part. Which is everything that we include in the labor for that specific part. So this is what's included in all of the labor here just for that bumper.
So is this, my mind's going blank, Don, so help me out here. When we used to ask, when adjuster and I were going back and forth and I would go, send me your labor report. And it was a special thing that you had to go print and send me. That way I could go through what was included and not included. I don't have to do that special report anymore. It's now right there. Push a button, we can go apples to apples, right?
Right. You can grab it right there, exactly how Fred showed you. All the included operations in real time, and any line you want as you go over it with an appraiser or customer or anyone.
Yeah. So when we're talking about having that discussion of maybe it's an apples to oranges situation where they come in and they're using a different estimating system. I meet so many shops these days that are carrying multiple licensing agreements because they're trying to be able, they think that they have to have them so that when the adjuster comes in and he has this system, I want to be able to talk, on his level or do whatever. This feature and being able to hit that button when they have their estimating system come in, and one of the things we teach in negotiation sometimes for shops is stop talking so much. It's not your job to prove everything. It's their job to prove what they're not going to do. So when they come in and hit their button and go, well, here's what my system that I'm writing in includes and says is included. And I go, oh, but here's what mine says. So let's go apples to apples and start talking about operations.
You make a great point. So Fred, go back to the bumper for a minute. I mean, ultimately, if someone's using, the adjuster's using a different estimating solution, he comes in and says, hey, look, on this front bumper, I only want to pay you 1.2 hours, let's say, because that's what my system says. You can get into this and then take a look at that breakout. And now it's showing how they've gotten to the 2.7, but more importantly, what's all included in there. So now, if we were to go pick every one of these pieces that is listed in the breakout, you can add it into the system and add it to the lines of the estimate, right? So it's showing it as an R&I, and it'll show zero labor because it's included in the overall. So it gets down to the way you want to write it. And Kristen talks a lot about this. That says, hey, go grab those parts and make sure it's very detailed. You can. The great part about Audatex Estimating is you can leverage the labor breakout to be able to show that how you quantify how it comes up with the 2.7 hours. And that way you don't have to have that argument like she talks about. Just print them, here's what it is. And if you add it to the estimate, say, hey, look, you want me to add it, you can start adding every one of those components on, which takes longer to write the estimate. However, it just says it's included as you put it in there.
Rebalance, right? Sometimes you'll get labor on that part, but it's been rebalanced from the other.
Yep. It makes negotiations a whole lot easier. Sometimes somebody comes in with another system and maybe they're more than mine, and that's awesome. I got to figure out why they're more than mine. And then I'll ask them what's included, and they'll bring out their included list, and I go, yeah, I need to add those, or maybe I don't need to add those. I can remember teaching estimating 10 years ago, and we would look at what all was included and go, hey, do I really, am I going to get into that part? And sometimes the answer was no. Okay, well, we're pretty good with that time then. But I love now how it's right there, how I'm not having to do that print process anymore and try to go get the labor report and do all that. So it's very, very cool addition there. Made me very happy.
Yeah, we've made
I'm
it
still
very
after the
easy
manual
to
entries, but
use,
that one made me happy.
Yeah. It's very easy to get to, right? Basically, any of those replace operations, as you're going through your list and you're looking at the labor, why did I, get this labor time? You just click here and, we have it right there available for you.
So, Kristen, I know we're closing in. I don't know how long we're going to be on, and we've been on here for a little bit. One of the things I wanted to go to is the photo side, because there's some great enhancements here on the photos. And Fred, do you want to show how we can add photos and how easy it is today than where it used to be?
Yeah, so there's a couple of different ways to do it. If you're working on a tablet, depending on how if it's what I call a true tablet, like an iPad or something like that, you can actually access your camera and take the photos and have them go on here. Or if you've already taken the photos, you can go to your library and get to those photos and add them on. And here we go. It's really quick. We've made some changes here for how the photos are viewed. So for example, you can actually flip a photo. So where is it? Right here. So you can move them 1/4 turn each time. So this is probably more like how we'd want to view it. We've also added the ability to, I guess I could do it right from here, add what I call a little bit of doodling or marking. So I like green because it tends to really stick out. And you could circle an area of damage, hit save, it puts it on the, adds it to your list of images, but it keeps the original image as well.
Right, so this is, and I'm glad we did this because I really want to talk about this. So this is great for court because the last thing I want to do is doodled up images for court. So one of the things that we run into a lot of times in prep is I'll get images that come in that are just nothing but people love to write with paint pens on cars. Please stop it. It's a pet peeve of mine because I get pictures and we think that, well, we mapped the repair, Kristen, and we're showing what we need and that's going to get us paid because that's a good photography, whatever. I need clean photos, and if you want to map photos, that's awesome. So what I like with this, I get my clean. If I took my photos using, say, my dent viewer board, which, hold on, I think I have it. The great thing about this headset is as I run around the shop, people can still hear me, but they can't see me. So if I wanted to take the picture with my dent viewer board and have just the image in there, then I could come back and actually, because I use the Surface tablet too, because that gives me a pen, I can draw on those pictures, very detailed. I can write the same R&I notes and they can be color coded. Fred, can you go back to those colors?
Yeah. On this one.
So if you were a person that was, you had a green pen for repair and a red pen for replace and a yellow pen for R&I, those colors are all there. So I don't actually physically have to mark the car anymore. Now, and I didn't ask this and I should have, so I apologize, Don, I'm going to put you on the spot here, but you're a shop guy, so you get it. You also had a bunch of stores, so you get it. Can my technicians see these photos after I mark them up? Can I get my techs access? Yeah,
Yeah.
Can I? Yeah.
That's no problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if we had a station, even a tablet, so because this is device agnostic, it works really well on a $40 Amazon Fire tablet. So because of device agnostic, even just cheap tablets, if you were saying, well, my technicians don't know what to do unless I mark up the car.
Right.
Okay, that's another problem we'll talk about when I visit. But okay, great. I'm going to give you that. But I'm not physically going to mark up the car. And then have to clean all that off or do whatever, which is just additional labor. And you guys have given me all the colors. So this was a fantastic addition. You do need to have a tablet that has a stylus with it because I've tried to do this like, finger and it's just not right. But when I add the stylus, it's perfect. It's almost even better than what I was doing when writing on the car. It kind of really, I guess, is the same. Wouldn't you say? Is that fair? It's almost the same colors. I'm writing on the panels.
Yeah. Fred, one of the questions that came in was, can I upload my photos from a mobile device?
It depends on the device. If I've done it from my iPad, and so yes, from a phone, the screens are too small. I wouldn't recommend doing it from a phone.
All right, the
Okay.
markup or the upload?
The upload.
I've uploaded from I've got a Moto Z. I've attached photos from a Moto. It's worked on Apple.
Okay.
I'm doing pretty good.
All right.
You know what would be interesting is to take I've got a Samsung Note I used to use. I wonder if I could write on the pictures with that. Okay, I got a new test we got to try.
Mhm.
Fred's like,
Fred-
no.
So Fred, we've showed the photos and the fact that we can do a multi-selection. And then of course now when I want to go send this, so if I'm working with an insurance partner, and I
Don.
send it, well, look, if I send it, I can select the photos that I want to send. I don't have to send every photo. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. And, you know, so look, one of the keys, and Chris and I know what you're saying, is that we may take more photos just so we have everything documented and only need to show or this. And even if we email it, I can select all the photos I want to email. I don't have to select, not all of them go. I can adjust back and forth, right? And so the other question out there, Fred, and this is something you and I talked about, is storage of photos. You know, everyone's using phones that are high res and what have you. Is there a storage limit when it comes to Qapter estimating today, and with the number of photos and how big and, you know, blah, blah, blah? I mean, that's a big question, right? Is there a storage issue or concern or something that a user has to worry about?
So the photos, you can put it up to 99 photos per estimate. And we've increased the size that we support. Same thing for any sort of attachment. You know, if you have a scan of the bill or anything really, procedures that we used to be limited to 1 meg, and we're no longer doing that.
Nice. Okay.
Yep.
So I got 99. So is that 99 red balloons? I got 99 high quality photos I can put on there.
Yeah.
99 high quality photos per estimate. That's even
Hey,
better.
hey, I know Melissa and Mackenzie are on here. Feel free to use that as a marketing thing. I'm just saying. That's my gift to you. So, so one of the other questions that we got coming in, Fred and Don. So does the new program have a better fasteners listing? So specifically, it looks like we're talking about fasteners for suspension. So it's probably my one-time use torque bolts, etc., and my airbag hardware.
So the
how are we
parts
listening?
coverage is the same compared to A, because you can actually go have the estimates go back and forth between the new system and the outgoing one. But we have been increasing the parts coverage on the newer vehicles for the past 4 or 5 years. So when you're looking at all these attachment parts and everything, those should start trickling in for most of the cars that you're now riding on.
Right. So William, all of that fastener data is trying to be, it's being pulled over from the OEM. So that is I don't want to say an area of concern, but it's something they've been working on, and it's still kind of a work in progress, and starting with models going through. So
And the other thing too, and with nuts, clips, and bolts, I mean, Fred, one of the things and features, and it's in 8 or Audatex Estimate today, and it comes over to here, but it's also the quantity. So when we went back to that bumper, and there were some fasteners, you'll look at it, and the fasteners for that little wheel molding, right, that opening that's missing in that bottom right photo, you can see those fasteners, and it will also tell you that it needs 5 of them. If you only need 3, you can actually change the quantity. So that's also available in the system as well. So if you're not familiar with that, we can show that as well.
awesome.
Yeah, so I think Don wanted to show me how to attach photos for an email. So you can attach either all of them or just select all and just click on the ones you want to send.
And Fred, how did you go to this? Because I mean, one of the questions I had, and we get at times, is, all right, how do I do this email? Because there's not something that's visual. Show me again, really step by step, where I find it.
So I went back to the work list, and it's one of the claim actions or action on the estimate here, and you click on this and email. So you can also print it. You can export it, Sika. So this is basically the actions that you could take, and one of which is email. So it's pulling everything up, and then you put in the email address where you want it to go to. It will send a copy of the estimate by default, but you could select any other report. So that labor report that we talked about is one of the options, and then you have your photos, and you can select which photo you want. it's queuing up the photos. Is what's still spinning.
Awesome. So from here, I can go in and then see what reports are. So I have a labor report, alternative parts report. So I have parts list here that I want to go look at.
Gross profit. I like that one.
Send the frame dimensions if you'd like to, which I think is kind of cool. So all of that is there, and you just have to put in the email address.
And how many people can I put in here? Can I put more than one email address?
Yes, you can.
And when I do that, do I just separate it by a colon, a comma? How do I do that?
Comma.
By comma. Okay.
It's like Google.
Just like Google.
Pretty typical stuff, right?
Yeah.
And you could put in a little note in here.
So for me, for those of you that are watching, this is where I send off my estimate, the reports I want, small numbers of photos. I'm not going to overwhelm the customer with photos, but I do want them to know, yes, in fact, we did look at your vehicle. So you left it looking like this for me. When I send you the photos of your actual report, it's going to be torn down. But and then I also give them their Google Drive. So we talk about that a lot, where we're going to, all those OE procedures, everything that Jason's been pulling and working on this car, we're going to send that for the customer's access as well, to be transparent. Some customers look at their OE repair data, some don't. I've noticed, like, BMW owners and Corvette owners, for some reason, Don, that was a complete dig.
Yeah, I know.
I got it in there. Go in there and look at their data or whatever. But I can send that all right here, right in the system, one place, boom, boom, get it off to the customer. And then in that email address, I'm like, I have everything prepared. When can we schedule your consultation? So bam, it's off to them.
All right. And then Fred, the number of lines we can have on an estimate, how big is this estimate? Is it the same as 8 right now? Do I cap it? So many lines?
Yeah, and really there's I mean, I've written estimates 250 lines, and it goes through, so hopefully it's not a problem.
All right. So but as in this one, is there a limit that we know of, or is that something we have to look into?
Can I write 300 lines?
I think you can write 300 lines. I've done 250 myself. I need to look into the system, see if it's if it's 1,000 or something like that. But it's by the time you get there, I think it's totaled.
Okay.
In a lot of cases, unless I'm working on like some of those, some of these, but I can get 360 lines on a, on an Audi or whatever. I get 360 lines on this Toyota if we work really, really hard. But.
Yeah. Oh no! I think that's what I've done it on. I got
the added stuff. We include all the additional labor that's already added. Hey, the other
additional labor and all the additional those attachment parts that we talked about, right?
So Fred, when I do the email for when I email the estimate and photos, the estimate comes over as a PDF, and the photos come over as a compressed image. Is that right?
Yeah, a compressed JPEG image.
So so it's a compressed JPEG, so that way we don't overwhelm them with the size of an email, for example, right? Because a lot of people are set at 5 meg, right, that they can get. So we could attach 5, 6, 7 photos and still send it to a customer, and they'll receive it without issue, right?
Yep.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Yeah, those just so that you know, Andrew, those files, those emails are really easy for the customer to open on mobile devices. So those smaller compressed images lets them kind of open quickly when they're on mobile data, which is nice.
Yeah. Well, Kristen, we've spent a lot of time today going through this, and we really appreciate you being able to allow us to share with your viewers the next generation of Audatex Estimating, which is Qapter. So we're in the process of moving this out into the mainstream. So as we start to go look for this, we are working diligently with the shops that are currently using our web platform today to move over to this. And so this will be more prevalent as you guys start to take a look at the industry, and you can access our website if you're interested about converting or even in the estimating product to take a look at Qapter.
Yeah,
I think it has a lot of great features.
It has a lot of great features.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, it's got a lot of great features. I will say also the new color coding for the screen that Fred's on is really good in the sunlight. Just so, by the way, I know that whether it was intentional, awesome. If it wasn't, cool.
It was intentional.
But it works really well out in the sunlight. So when I'm outside with it, I don't have any problem. So we're going to take some questions. I'm going to take these in a couple of different ways because, again, while I've got Fred and Don on here, if you want to see anything that we haven't demoed, there's no way we could demo everything in one setting or think of it. So we want to get to your questions. One that just came in, Is there any intention of linking the program to OEM procedures like Mitchell does with Toyota?
Fred?
Oh,
Look, we have this already on the procedures when you look at Tesla. So we do have the link
Yep.
directly on the Tesla side. And that's something as we start to go look at how do we form different relationships. So when you look at that competitor, they have a specific relationship with Toyota to have that feature, which is not an offer to other estimating providers, i.e. what we have with Tesla. And so we do look to expand this as we go in the future as it stands. But
Yep.
today it is not available outside of Tesla.
Outside of Tesla. And then Don knows what my follow-up to that is going to be. I'm just not a fan of that. Like, I think all of the, and it, you know, some of it's kind of cool, but I always, every time I test through this, there's some 2 or 3 procedures we find that were left out. I think the coding, so those incredibly brilliant people that turn zeros and ones into what I get to see and just double click and write an estimate with, the amount of coding that it would take to link every single possible procedure to the estimating lines seems overwhelming to me. I know there's that, you know, supercomputing and all that stuff. I get it, but I want to make sure my estimators and myself and my technicians don't miss anything. And I sometimes feel that when we have things that pop up for us, we think that that's all we need to know because it popped up, and we don't take that extra time to go do the digging. And when we don't, we miss very important things like taking the steering columns out and doing some other things there. So on a Tesla question, Tesla front, if the repair procedure changes, if Tesla changes the repair procedure, Don, how long does it take y'all before you have the switch and update in Audatex?
But I defer to Fred. As they make those changes, they provide them to us, and then our authorship has to go through and add to our database. So there is a little bit of a time delay simply because of the authoring side, right?
Yeah.
But that information is sent over to us, and then we author it. The nice part about using the solution you see today is that because it is web-based, the minute we author it is now available. And if you were using what we consider what's disconnected, where you're doing a push of an updated data, then obviously you wouldn't get that till you updated your data. That's the power of going to the solution that is web-based, so that as we author it and add it in the solution, you have it instantly, right? That's part price changes. It's anything, all of it.
Awesome. Anybody got any questions that they want to ask personally, not type in? Anybody? It's your chance to beat up Don. For the record, he is a Corvette guy, and we all know that's the worst customer to have in the shop.
Wait a minute, I'm a C8 guy. Let's make sure we understand that. C8.
See, you just made the perfect example of a Corvette owner. I'm just.
No, I don't know about that because it's the mid-engine. It's a whole different world, right?
Is it jorts weather yet, Don?
Christian.
Awesome. Hey, Blaze has got a question, and I'm going to defer because I don't want to take the rebuttal of whatever Don's going to have. All right,
So
Blaze.
My question is, when you guys were going through and when you passed over doing the line item note, I noticed where, it's saying 70 character limit. We're an Audatex user now, and the way, we use that right now, you can do that. There's the character limit per line, but you can do, I think it's up to like 5 lines kind of stacked on a single item. Is that still functioning the same? Has that been expanded? Because one thing that we have found, and that I'm really hoping will, if it's not even in this right now, may expand in the future, is the necessity of, detailed notes has just expanded, exponentially because of the length of the estimates and the complexity and all that stuff. So if you could talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so today we support the same number of lines and same number of characters for the line notes. We are going to extend it to double it and make it 10 lines per damage entry in the future. I can't give you a timeline, but that request is in.
Okay.
And so when you do your stuff, are you doing a lot of attachments as well? So do you add some of the OE procedures and attachments and just put notes to defer to it, or do you type out a lot more of those notes on your lines?
So we're not attaching the procedure, so to speak. It's more a matter of, it's more a matter of description, especially when you get into things like, it can be anything from hardware. I mean, if you have hardware is going to show up, whatever kind of hardware it is, bolt, clip, whatever, it's going to have a part number and it's going to have some generic description. And that's not your fault. It's just a bolt.
Right.
So then you're going, well, if I do a big suspension job and a job that has a lot of plastic clips, it's like I might have 30, 40 plus lines that could literally be hardware. And
Sure.
I want to be able to go, okay, this is what this component is, break that down. And then it can also be things like, you know, if you have a panel replacement that has a lot of additional operations happening just to that panel, and you're trying to preemptively explain, hey, this is why there's like 6 refinish operations just on this one panel.
Yeah.
So that's kind of our interest in it, is that, you know, ever increasingly trying to be able to have it not just be like a codes and abbreviation list, but something that's readable, especially to the consumer.
Right. Yeah, something that when the consumer, because look, the estimates feel like they're written in a foreign language for a consumer, right? So the more you can write and more descriptive you can be, the easier it is for them to truly understand what you're doing to their vehicle. So I get it. And like Fred said, we look to expand the number of lines in the future, and we'll take a look at the characters and the length as well and see what that can do in the future. But as it stands today, you'll be able to, it still operates the same functionality as you have in ADXE 8 or the current ADXE that you have, but now you have a refreshed UI with some enhancements that we think can make your life a little easier, especially with the mobility side. Are you using web-based today, or are you using the auto update? Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
So the cool thing is that it's not only the consumer that's got to have it, but as we go to work with more remote adjusters, desk appraisers, less physical inspections, those guys need all the line notes we can give them to help guide them through it. So, Don, $1 million question, and I ask it. If a watcher asks it, I'm gonna ask it to you. Does Audatex or Solera sell vehicle information to any third party? And I think what they're going with this is specific VIN information that may or may not end up on a Carfax report.
Nope, we do not.
There we go.
We do not.
So, Alex, is there a second part of that because I interpreted what I thought you were meaning there. Nope. Okay, great, cool. Just want to make sure. All right. I sometimes interpret people and they go, "That's not what I meant at all." And I go, "Sorry." So awesome.
We need to be Switzerland. So we're here to help you guys write estimates and fix cars, and that's it. So
awesome.
No.
I like writing estimates and fixing cars, but I really like getting paid. So
make sure you get paid for everything you do, and that's one of the things that's kind of cool about what we've been able to highlight today. Fred, is there something about Qapter estimating that we didn't cover today that you'd like to share to the people here, or do we cover pretty much everything that you saw?
About estimate check.
Oh yeah, I mean that's one of my favorite parts. Is I'm still gonna call it forgettables. I don't care what you rename it.
Yeah, well, I mean, yes. And I'm sitting here. I'm like, do I bring it up?
Yeah, no, I love this thing. I love it especially. So just for the record, if I'm working with a shop, I know we call it auditing, but if I'm working with a shop and I'm working with new estimators and stuff, this is a great tool that I always try to get the shop owner to buy, because we can preset these rules and I don't have to be there to look at every estimate sometimes. And it takes 30 days to make a habit. You're not going to write the $14,000 quarter panel 1 week after you leave class. So we got to build these things slowly for you. So yeah, I love this tool.
Yeah, so I'm running estimate check. It takes about, about a minute, I'd say, maybe a little under that. And so it's running against all the rules that you have set for your profile. And I can click on this and access the estimate check report. So there are 2 views for estimate check now. In 8, we only have the PDF view that gives you the list of total exceptions for that were found. So here we found that there's no flex additive that's been put on this on this estimate, and there's no hazardous waste. If I had replaced the headlight, and I already had aim headlights, so that's why it didn't flag, but it would have prompted you to do the aim headlight. And if in this case you would see the headlight listed here, and here you can also have this view which is called edit view, and you have a way to edit the item and click on it and make changes to it. Or in this case, I need to add a damage entry for flex, so I can click on add a part, and I can go to my frequently used, and what was this?
Flex additive.
Flex.
Right on the bottom.
There we go. Boom. I actually have my $5 or whatever pre-stored in here. Hit save, and it's added to the estimate.
Awesome. And that's
Yeah.
way faster than what it used to be.
Yeah. You know, because the reason we did this is you get this report, and if you have a long estimate, like 360 damage lines that we talked about, and you're trying to find the one line where you have to go make a change, and you have to go back to the list, and you want to gouge your eyes out. So that's why we did that.
Yeah.
And give the edit, which is a filtered list for the damage lines that raise some exceptions.
Now
The
you
ones that
have
you can't do it, but for when it's a specific damage line that triggered an exception, we were able to show this.
So we've got roughly a little over, is it 250 available rules already that you can just select? It's kind of like going to the shelf and building your own six-pack.
So we have a
It's kind of
standard list
crazy
of
how
rules.
flexible that system is. You could basically run a check on any field, like all the admin fields, behavior in the vehicle, point of impact, whether it's on or not. You can do all of that.
So as it stands today, Kristen, there's a couple of things with the rules. We have a standard package of these rules that we call recoverables that is not editable today. So with the rule sets, and there was a question I saw pop up on the screen, can you select your own rules? As it stands today, there's not an area you go in and start to edit and change and update rules. We have a standard set you load in, and we can share those rules with you before you'd want to engage those. We always take a look at those rules and say, do we need to add, subtract, change, or alter those rules? But it's pretty much a standard list for the shop side of the house. Now, we have a little bit more elaborate setup and a different UI and things that insurers may use to run rules, but in the estimating for shops, the recoverable side is most common things that you should be considering as you wrote your estimate. For example, this bumper cover may not require flex additive, but hazardous waste removal you are painting, so you do want to have that charge on the estimate. So these are the kind of things that really kind of help miss. What we find is there is and we've done some studies, I won't put a number out here, but there is a number we've done in our studies that show the average estimate misses a certain amount of dollars that they could be billing for based on what they've written. And it just gets down to the speed of people writing estimates today. And that's the beauty of having that rule set there. But as it stands today, there isn't a way to change those rules or alter them on the shop side, but we continue to go update and enhance them as we move forward.
Yeah, you're going to get there for me because I really want to build. And I think my set of custom rules is so different than everything else because I'm looking for some certain OE stuff. I'm going to pre-measure, and I'm going to pre-measure every car. I'm going to pre-scan, post-scan, all those things. Those are things I want to make sure that we're not missing. So one day you're gonna let me have my hands on that product. Fred's like, no.
All right. So anything else that we have to cover today? I mean, Fred, it kind of gave you a good view of what's going on here. Do you feel like
you're the training guide? We have this little question mark, and actually the question mark is moving. We're making tweaks to the system continually. So the next version, that little question mark will move towards the top, so it's not covering the bottom here. But for every page, you're going to have these little training guides where you can click on them. They're really quick. They're only a few seconds each, 3 or 4 pages, or a quick little video, which helps you as you're getting used to the system, or if you have a new hire who has never used the system before, it's there to help them get familiar with the system without having to go to a website, sign up for a course, or anything like that. So it's a nice way to get up to speed pretty quickly. And those are page sensitive. So everything that you see here is relating to the damage list. If I go back to my work list, you're going to see how to set up your Sika stuff and how to use some of the features on the work list and things of that nature. So the content is page sensitive.
Awesome. Well, hey, Don, anybody that wants to get a hold of the team, old Scott Henderson and all of his guys, or those up there, where do they go? What do they do? Do they go to the Audatex website?
Yeah, just go right to the Audatex website. We have a link on there to Qapter. If you're interested, we can reach out. Again, we're going to work through the migration side of this, and soon we'll be launching it as all new sales will be going on this platform. Again, it's the cool part of this that Fred highlighted earlier is that if you're using a current user of web and you enjoy the way this looks, it's great. We can set it up that the minute you turn on your system the next day or log into it, You have the new UI, and all of your data, all your estimates, everything's there. Your profiles are the same. There is one little nuance, and I'll make sure that I say it today. The one nuance is if you're exporting estimates through the Seeka path, we can't grab and paste that because it's customized, right, to where your system wants to go. So you're going to have to re-enter that path. But that's the only thing you have to re-enter when you switch over to this solution, is really your export path. And it's simple, and there's a little question mark. We'll walk you through how to go do it. It's simple and easy. I would recommend that before you go and switch, you look where it is in Audatex Estimating today, copy it so you have it written down, and then when you switch to the next one, you can pop it right in, you know?
It's all there. Well, it's definitely, to me, it's I don't want to say it's easier to write. I like the layout, the feel. I love the features of emailing directly and dropping documents to the customer. Still, I've always been in love with the 3D graphics. The customers love them, attorneys love them. It's a fantastic thing. They look good in the courtroom, although I know that's not a selling feature for you guys. But but they work really great there. And man, does this thing look good in the sunlight. So fantastic changes. We're still going to talk about those manual entries, though. I'm still going to stay on y'all for that one. But we got a lot of good stuff here, and some options for some shops to take a look at for estimating. All right. Hey, I appreciate you guys taking the time to give everybody kind of a preview of this system. We've been talking about it for a while, and it's coming. So I wanted to make sure people could see it and go, no, we're not lying. It really is coming. Here it is. So, so that's awesome. And then if I didn't answer your questions today, shoot me a note. I'll be happy to answer some of your questions. Be back with us probably about them, as soon as travel has lifted and Jason and Larry can get down here. Jason's going to get here a lot sooner than Larry can get out of New York. We will be blueprinting this car completely, and we will be doing it in Qapter. So you get to come back and see this whole process start to finish and everything that we're going to have on this car. All right. Well, everybody go have a fantastic day. Thanks.
Kristen, thank you.